I think it would be foolish of us to say sleep is not spiritual. So many inventions have happened during sleep. It is probably one of the most spiritual things you can do to connect to the higher divine. Sleep is the biggest surrender experiment. Every time you go to sleep, it's like your trash can. It's like the trash is being cleaned out. And if you don't go to sleep and you do that regularly, it's like things are just piling up.
That was great. So, how do you prioritize your sleep?
Anyone who has restlessness or insomnia, it's usually because
Spiritual fitness. I'm your host, Eric Bigger, and I'm back again with another episode. And today, oh baby, we get to talk about longevity, sleep, rest, and all the things that's going to have a healthy body, a healthy mind, and more importantly, a healthy life. And I got the amazing Feby Maria Puravath Manikat. She's a sleep doctor, a longevity specialist, and she helps people get to the root of their being to live the best fulfilling life. She's a sleep medicine graduate from Stanford University. She also studied at Cornell University, and she's incredible, very educated, very well renowned, and very spiritual. And this is why she's on spiritual fitness, because I have so many questions. Feby, welcome to Spiritual Fitness. How are you?
good. Wow. Thank you for the lovely introduction. It's an honor to be here and spend time with you.
Yes. So I want to read something off your website, and I kind of want to start the conversation from there. Rooted in ancient wisdom and supported by the best of modern medicine, I invite you to transform your health and vitality. With expertise spanning from sleep medicine, nutrition, and integrative care, I blend science and spirituality to address the root causes of health challenges. Reimagine your sleep, reclaim your energy, and unlock your most powerful self at every stage, at any age. Please unpack that synopsis. That's beautifully written. So take us to the consciousness of this for you, and how did you get into this practice of life? Where did it all begin, and how did you become brilliant in sleep?
I think it all made sense just because we spend a third of our lives sleeping and it made to me, it just seemed a natural extension of medical school. I did have some sleep issues shortly after residency. And so at first I thought I was going to do like primary care. And after having sleep issues myself, I realized why it was almost like one of those like, wait, why am I not knowing more about sleep? As I mentioned, like a third of our lives dreaming and sleeping. So why not find out more about it? I remember in medical school and in residency, like learning all the squiggly lines, the EEG, the electroencephalogram, and thinking this is, first of all, I don't even know how to interpret this. It doesn't really make sense. But to like looking more into it and like, okay, now you're in alpha, you're in beta, you could be in gamma, you can be in theta, you can be in delta, in deep sleep. And so there's so many sleep stages that a sleep doctor can look at that and say, oh, is this person in deep sleep or are they in alpha or are they
Mhm.
like semi comatose? Or are they dreaming? And that you can see all of that through your brainwave. So even though it looks like you were just kind of not awake,
Yeah.
but it's actually a very dynamic stage, and so I just started really nerding out and going into my textbooks and doing research, and I had the privilege of doing research, with some of my mentors at both Stanford as well as at Harvard, and so just doing that and learning more about it, made me really fascinated. I ended up doing a fellowship at Stanford, um, and then becoming fascinated by bridging what I'd previously done. I did nutrition at Cornell.
Yeah.
And so I thought, why not bridge all of these together and have an element of spirituality in it? Why do we not talk about spirituality? It's almost like a taboo. Why do you even want to go there? But for me, I'm not going under the lens of like, oh, I prescribe to this religion or that religion. It's more like understanding the universality in all of us.
Yeah.
All are human beings and we all are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so why not understand that common thread through the lens of medicine, right? And so I come from a very spiritual and of my family also from a very religious background.
Yeah.
always had that inclination, and I always found world religions fascinating, whether that's Islam, whether that's Christianity, whether that's Buddhism or Hinduism. I thought there was always some degree of mysticism, and I'm almost like a little child, like in awe and wonderment. I'm like, oh, why do they do that? Or what does the bells have to do with this? And so I think it just made sense for me not to acknowledge that, right? As civilizations, we've been doing this for thousands of years. Why do we not now think that medicine and spirituality shouldn't be combined,
Absolutely.
even when other civilizations have always combined it?
Yeah, and I think, sleep in general is, like you said, a third of our life, right? We spend our time sleeping, but also sleep is the dream state. Can you go down gamma, theta, beta? Like, what do all those mean within I guess, the brain or within our frequency to kind of give to the audience so they understand the spaces if you can?
So beta is awake, like right now we're
Wait,
at beta.
beta. Okay. Perfect.
And then you have alpha, which is kind of between wake and sleep. Even though it doesn't make sense, it's like alpha, it's beta alpha.
Yeah.
And then you have theta. Theta is where you have like at 1, at 2 sleep. And then you have delta, which is like deep sleep. And that can also interchange sometimes based on where you are in the sleep cycle. But deep stage has a different cycle. Light sleep has a different cycle. So that's why we call it those. And the reason we call it, for example, theta or delta is based on the frequency. So that's how many hertz that will have in it. So that's the number of times the brain waves will move. And so when we used to first do the polysomnogram or the PSG, which is another term for sleep studies, we used to actually have like the paper where it does the recordings.
Yeah.
And we noticed that in 1 second, gamma means or beta means there's this many hertz. Alpha means this how many times the needle moved, and theta means this how many. So it's just based on the frequency of the brain signals and the electricity that's happening in your brain, essentially.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because, sleep is what we all experience, and some of us don't get as much sleep as we would like. But can you speak on like the correlation of sleep and success, sleep and money, sleep and love, and just sleep and overall happiness? Is there any type of correlation or statistics that if you get a certain amount of sleep based on space, like how does sleep correlate to fulfillment in life? If that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
What a brilliant question. All of the above.
Yeah.
Sleep affects every sphere and every aspect of your life. And I know it sounds like I'm overemphasizing it,
Yeah.
really not. For example, if you've had a bad night of sleep,
Yeah.
you will be more cranky. In fact, we might even tell our loved ones, our partner, our like our children, hey, I didn't get good sleep, so just letting you know. And that's almost like saying, "Please give me some grace because I'm not gonna be my usual self because my temperament is not
Yeah.
I don't have that buffer," right? That's what
Mm.
we do. Like, it's almost like, please don't. We know that now scientifically because there's less blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the most advanced part of our brain. It's the executive part of our brain. That's what helps us with fine thinking and executive level thinking of like that high task. And that is needed for judgment calls on emotions and really sophisticated thinking, and that gets less blood flow whenever we get less sleep.
Yeah.
But if that area of the part that makes those sophisticated choices is getting less blood flow, we will act more animalistic, we'll act more primitive because the rest of our brain did get the blood flow, but the most sophisticated part of our brain, or the prefrontal cortex, which developed last in our brain, gets the least.
So when you say primitive, are you saying we're more reactive to life instead of
Yes.
responding to life?
Yes, we react
And
more.
and now, so that makes sense. So people listening, it's simple. You got to get your rest. You got to get sleep, right? Sleep is important. Now, should we be sleeping from a certain time? Because I've heard studies, I read this book or parts of it, Sleep Smarter, and it talks about from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is kind of like prime time sleeping. So does it matter what time we're sleeping? Because sometimes I know if I sleep between 10 and 2 a.m., even if I get up early, I'm not as tired. It's kind of weird, but I've kind of witnessed that. So can you explain like what hours of sleep should we intentionally focus on every night if we can?
Yeah, so that what you just described beautifully is usually the bulk of the greatest sleep. That's for normal chronotypes. So
Okay.
we have usually, so it's like a bell curve distribution. Most people are in the usual chronotype where they go to sleep somewhere between 9 to 10 or 11 and the
Yeah.
wake somewhere between 6 to 7. That's the usual chronotype. And then there's these what we call the early larks where they go to sleep around 7 or 8 a.m.
Mm.
And then they wake up at 3 to 4 AM. So they have a their sleep cycle has been advanced. So they don't sleep in the usual normal distribution.
So 7 to 8 p.m. and then they're up at 3 to 4 a.m.
Yes,
Got it.
exactly. And you've noticed that the older population, like the elderly, like to sleep in earlier because they're the way their sleep cycle works is it advances as you get older. Then you have a certain subset of population who are night owls, and so they're they cannot go to sleep until they cannot go to sleep until midnight, or sometimes it's 1 or 2 or even 3 a.m. And then they have at 9 or 10 a.m. the next day. And so they're usually the creatives, the ones that are more into arts and music. And
Got
so
it.
there's a genetic predisposition. So for people who are advanced or
Yeah.
sleep early, they might see that their parents are like that, family
Okay.
members are like that. And the same thing with night owls. You usually have a family member that's the same way. So there is a genetic predisposition, and we know there's certain genes that cause that. But for the general population,
Yeah.
like I said, 10 to 2 a.m. is peak sleep. It
Yeah.
is the best time to get sleep. Your growth hormone secretion is the most, you get the most deep sleep, you get the most restful sleep. And if you look at all ancient civilizations, they all tell you the same thing. And so that's what I think is important is that yes, I've learned all of like medicine and I have an MD, and I also think it's important for me to look at the knowledge that's in other ancient civilizations across the world and see is there a common thread. And if you look at that, all of them say that. All of them say go to sleep earlier and then you get more restful sleep. And if you want to meditate and if you have a more of a spiritual aspect, wake up earlier. And that could be reading the Bible, that could be reading the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita. It can be any sort of, or just meditation. It can be any where you wake up earlier before the rest of the world and get your time in with God.
Yeah, it's so important to know like those quiet hours I call them between 3 and 4 a.m. because sometimes I'm up. So I want to get into that. But before we move into that, the spiritual aspect of sleep and our souls and our conscience, I have so much to ask about that. Now, can you break the theory or maybe there's a myth? Do we have to get 8 hours of sleep? Because I understand when I'm between 5.5 and 6, I'm good. I don't usually get 7 to 8 unless I'm really, really tired, but I know 6 hours was like clean, good sleep for me. Can you explain like this theory of you have to get 8 hours of sleep? Also, because I'm up early, I do take naps. So I get up at 4, 4:30. I take naps around between, I would say like 1 and 3. I'm like napping. So right now, and I feel like my body like, yeah, you probably need to take a nap at some point. Like I can feel it. You know what I mean? But it's fine. It's just it helps me. So can you yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it could be that you're a very efficient sleeper where you just require less amount of sleep. And there is a small population that they're what we call short sleepers or efficient sleepers. They have just as efficient sleep with 5 to 6 hours as someone who has 7 to 8 hours. You could be that, or your body has learned to adjust to that. Maybe that's also why. Or you're also taking a nap. So if you are regularly taking a nap,
Mhm.
are at the end, if you're getting an hour of sleep, you're probably getting 7 hours of sleep. And so
Got
according
it.
to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, and most published data shows anywhere between 7 to 8 hours is optimal.
Yeah.
But if you are able to function, let's say on 6 hours, you have no daytime impairment. Your personality hasn't changed. You're not irritable. You're not sleepy in the daytime, and there's no daytime impairment, then I would say that's sufficient for you. That's what's most And so whenever you diagnose any sleep conditions, we always ask the patient, how do you subjectively feel? Like if you're feeling fine, that's what's most important
Yeah.
as far as like it's not the number, or you also might be getting really good quality sleep.
Yeah, I did it as an EGG test before, and the guy was telling me that it doesn't take my brain that much energy to fall asleep, where some people it does.
Yeah.
So I don't need as much. And then it says my brain, I'm always looking for a purpose if I want to serve a purpose. So like as far as my energy output, like I need purpose to kind of once I find purpose, I'm like busy, I'm good. I have a more productive brain, but they were saying like it doesn't take a lot of energy for me to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm not using so much of my, I guess, brain energy with some people. He's saying something like a glucose or sugar thing. I forgot how he said it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's maybe why I don't sleep as long because it doesn't take me a lot to go to sleep when I'm tired, right?
Well, all
Um,
my patients are in bed for 9 hours, but if you actually look at their bedtime, they're only in bed for they're actually only sleeping for 6 hours.
okay,
So
okay.
it takes them 30 minutes to
Yeah,
45 minutes to an hour to go to sleep. Then they might wake up between 3 to 4 AM, and then it takes them another hour, so they're not efficient sleepers.
got it.
So it's not it sounds like you're an efficient sleeper.
Yeah, I think I get efficient sleep once. I know if I'm in bed between 9:45 and 10:30, 10:35, no, I'll be good. I'll be good. Because I get up like 4:15, 4:30. Sometimes I have a client at 5, 6 a.m., so I'm up, right? Then now the question is, let's get into the spiritual part of the episode.
Yeah.
What does the soul consciousness say about sleep from your higher self? What does the soul say about sleep and why? Or is it important? I mean, of course we know, but from a deeper analysis, what do you feel or what do you think? Also, what do you know?
My understanding is that our body, physical body needs
Yeah.
rest, but I
Okay.
think our soul needs time to just connect with universal consciousness,
Got it. Got it.
with God.
Yeah.
So a lot of I know I do this where if I have a question, I
Mhm.
ask the question before I go to sleep. God, I really need help with this.
Yeah.
Uh, this thing. Can you tell me? And usually I have the answer by the morning.
Yeah.
Because God, let me marinate, or universe, or whichever higher entity you want to call it, lets you
Yeah.
urinate in that because you have so much time to pull it apart and think of it in different ways, and you get that answer. And we know from a biblical perspective or from all world religions that how much dream state is so vital to spirituality.
Yeah.
So I think it would be foolish of us to say sleep is not spiritual. There
Yeah.
are so many transmissions, so many powerful downloads, so many inventions have
Mhm.
happened during sleep. So I absolutely think so. I think it is the key to productivity, even though it seems counterintuitive. We are in a very capitalistic, productive culture that we think
Yeah.
put off sleep, I will actually get more done. But it doesn't work that way. You're actually more efficient when you go to sleep. The rest 16 hours you are, or 17, 18 hours, you're more productive actually
Yeah.
than work to put it off and not do it. And
Yeah.
you being in the physical fitness world, I see that with some of my pro athletes. Like their reaction time is so much slower when they don't get enough sleep. And their reaction time is better. Their jump vertical is better. Everything is better when they get sleep.
Sometimes we look outside of ourselves of what we don't have or we can't experience, and we think, well, I would never get to this. I could never get to that. But I'm pretty sure in your practice, there's things or cues you've given clients to help them get on the other side of themselves through sleep.
Yes.
And I think that's what I want for people to understand in this episode is that sleep is a weapon, just like prayer is. Because what is prayer? You're in a sleep state because you're present. I'm closing my eyes, and it's like I'm in a dream state, speaking to higher consciousness, God, that created the universe, on what I want to see in my dream reality, which is life. Right. So it's so interesting how sleep is so connected to everything we do and what we are. And I always say when I was young, if I didn't sleep as much, maybe I wouldn't have been as tall. Because there's a joke from the coach, like, yeah, you don't sleep at night. That's why you don't grow. And as I would tell my nephews if they wanted to play ball. But for you, what do you think is the best benefit you can give people when it comes to sleep and spirituality or just that realm for their benefit?
I think sleep is the most underutilized tool.
Got it.
I think it is sacred, and I think people need to sanctify it and give it its holiness.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like that. It's not holy, but it is. It really is. In fact, all of my patients who have any sort of trouble, I just tell them sleep on it. Don't make any action right now. Don't, whether it's life choices or whether it's a really important acquisition to make, sleep on it. And then almost all of my patients have better clarity after they wake up. We know this has happened time and time again with inventions, right? You sleep on it, and then the next morning or the after you wake up, even the nap. A lot of the inventions in the 1900s were they would use the utilization of naps. And so it is probably one of the most spiritual things you can do to connect to the higher divine.
Yeah, that's see, this is the thing that I know from spiritual fitness, at least in my world. This is like I like to extract things, like bring it back into like the view of life. You just help me with something. And I think this is the thing I knew you had for us today is what is that one thing that everybody in the world can relate to, no matter what age, what class, what demographic. People, if you listen to what she just said, if you have a problem you want to solve, you have an issue, you have a challenge, you're curious about something, you don't really know, sleep on it.
Sleep on it.
Just sleep. That should be a commercial. Sleep on it by Feby Maria. Sleep on it. You take this and you'll get your answer. So what else you got in there? Because that was great.
Oh my
So
God.
how do you prioritize your sleep? I mean, having all this information, having clients, how do you prepare yourself for sleep and how do you allow that to move in your life for your family and your friends? Does everyone around you sleep good? Is everyone great sleepers?
Well, first of all, I don't want you to stop your naps. Your naps are very
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm a big proponent of napping and sleeping and meditation. It's all different forms of rest, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I prioritize that even over like my kids. I have two kids, and so even if they're sometimes, let's say we got in last night late, or they had some event that was, took up was later than their bedtime,
Yeah.
I'll tell them to go to sleep, and even if they're late for school, uh, I prioritize sleep. Like, sleep is the most important for their cognition, the where their neural pathways are forming. I'm not gonna not prioritize sleep because I just know how important it is, especially as you're growing.
Yeah.
It determines your growth potential. There's too much at stake.
Yeah, that's great because I think we think we even have FOMO, fear of missing out, or if we go to sleep too early, we're gonna miss something at young ages.
Yeah.
Now, what do you say for people like I know for me, I can get restless, right? And even though I'm sleeping, I'm not really at rest. Or if I'm meditating, my mind is still going. What is your advice or feedback for restless people, people who are very anxious or who have is it insomnia? Insomnia. What is your advice for people that's in that space of they can't shut the brain off, they can't go to sleep, their brain is always just what do you what how do we cure that space to let them go to sleep?
Yeah, so anyone who has, and including me, anyone who has restlessness or anyone who has anxiety or insomnia, it's usually because they're not in the present moment. Because either they're thinking about the past and all the mistakes they did, and
Yeah,
would have all of those things, or just understanding the trauma that happened and
yeah.
trying to understand it. So there's a lot of things to unpack there. Or they're in the future thinking about their to-do list and things that they have and all the ambitions and everything that they have to do. They're not anywhere in the present. It's here or here. And that's why we have to solve that. The problem is they're not in the present moment and they haven't completely surrendered to the present moment.
Yeah, and it's so true because this is why I love meditation, but I like breath work better because breath work gets me out of my mind. My woman says prayer, I got this from her. She's like, prayer is she said, no, breath work is prayer for the body. And I was like, that is so good. And I think sometimes we forget the body not only keeps the score, but holds everything. Our answers, our fears, our life, our livelihood. Now, what is your perspective on because these things always come to me like in passing, or I'm just walking, I might get like, oh, that's interesting. But my spirit be like, you need to go to sleep because you're thinking about something too much and you're in the way of it actually coming in or actually happening. What is that in the spiritual way of life when it comes to clearing out? our minds or our bodies, like, what is that? What's happening when we're present or we're letting go of those thoughts that we're transmitting out? What's happening for that? They're like, oh, boom, there it goes. But when I focus on it, it doesn't come. What is that?
Sleep is the biggest surrender experiment
Oh,
because there's nothing else that you can force yourself to go to sleep. Like, you can force yourself to work out, you can force yourself to eat healthy, you can force yourself to do everything else, but you
yeah.
cannot force yourself to go to sleep. That's why a lot of patients suffer with insomnia. They're forcing yourself. At some
Yeah.
point, you have to let go and surrender. And that's the only way you can go to sleep.
And, I saw a quote online, and it's probably the most beautiful way of manifestation. And the woman goes, think about it. Every night you pretend to go to sleep and then you fall asleep. How simple is that? And some of us, we're not attached to that. Like, yeah, I mean, it's late. I should go to bed. And then eventually we're in bed, we're sleeping.
Yeah.
But when it comes to everything else, we just can't let go and allow. And then we even don't get it or we push it away. Because I really believe, knowing what I know, things are simple and not as hard as we make them. They're only hard because we don't have the evidence in front of us to see that they're possible.
Oh, yes.
But when you have it in your field and you're experiencing, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's possible because you see it. But if you don't see it, you don't believe it can ever happen because you're not witnessing it. And that's why, knowledge, information, proximity is power, being around the right people, being in the right rooms, because you pick up other energies. But I do think there's so much we can do in sleep to benefit us. By the way, do you have like a benefit packet or benefit folder or book that we can read or look at to?
But it's more of, like, things that just organically I tell them
Yeah.
and knowledge that I just tell them, but I should probably
No, you should. This is like, cause I took the chronotype test. I think at one point in my life, I was a bear.
Uh-huh.
And then another point in my life, I was a lion. So I don't know how that correlates, right? Between those 2.
You can do it scientifically. I mean, there's ways something called core body temperature and DILMO, which is dim light melatonin onset. So I know exactly and precisely when Eric's melatonin is secreted from his pineal gland to the exact time when his core body temperature is the lowest. So then I can very accurately, to the minute, tell you what your chronotype is. It requires a little bit more sophisticated testing, but we have tools that can really help that. And I do that for a lot of my patients, especially if they're traveling
Yeah.
and they're suffering with jet lag. But man, oh man, like, absolute
Yeah.
sleep is the biggest manifestation tool because if you go to sleep and your defenses aren't up, all of your worries and what if nots can be completely dampened. So why not use it to your full potential?
How do you see the world unfold in the next 3 to 5 years? Because I believe people gonna wanna be more spiritual. And I think religion is great in a lot of ways, but I think beyond religion is a spiritual part of everyone that they can connect to get into a more of a higher consciousness for whatever they're here to do.
We have religion, we have, like, people who are so patriotic to their country. It's,
Yeah,
just like barriers to
yeah,
what? I don't know. I mean, unless a country or a religion has maybe they don't even have an ulterior motive, but it just creates divide as well as you put yourself in that box. And if you're open to it, and like you said, at the end goal, it's all the same, it's all love and peace.
yeah,
Who are we to say what you're doing is wrong, what I'm doing is right? It just all seems foolish. It just seems
yeah,
petty when you look at it from the grand scheme of things, right? If you look at it from like, okay, we're looking at it from the universe side and you see we're the only planet as of now that we know of that contains it, and we're this floating rock, right? That doesn't have any gravity, that doesn't have any gravity outside, but has gravity inside. It
yeah,
all just seems so foolish. And as far as, like, seeing the divide, one of my, like, biggest, like, visceral moments I felt it
yeah,
is during anatomy dissection. Like, this is, like, probably, like, common sense to everybody, and it was to me, but it's something different when you are dissecting a human body to learn the anatomy.
yeah,
The moment you take the skin off of the body, all of the sudden, it is either a man or a woman.
yeah.
It doesn't matter what religion or what nationality or what the color of their skin is. Now the skin is taken off. The skin is just a few millimeters thick. That's the only thing that has caused war and famine and all kinds of mayhem in the world. That's only a few millimeters thick. And the
Yeah.
moment you take it off, you're like, was this person? Whatever color, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And it's just the gender that you can see, but everything else is the same.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just like the biggest aha, like spark, like what are we doing as human beings if we can't see how foolish we are to see something that is so minimal? Yes, it contains a lot of surface area, but it's so like trivial.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just I wish a lot of people can take anatomy dissection because for me, it was such a profound, like, "What?" Like, how can you even see separation?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I think what I've learned, at least this year the most, because I've been studying a lot of wealth and abundance consciousness, right? What is that to be wealthy? What is it like to be abundant from a consciousness level? When I'm looking at life, I want to teach the young men, the young women, and even the people I get to coach and serve, like, hey, let's work on our consciousness. Like in spiritual fitness, we're working out, but we're working on our consciousness. Because today's class was about what you want to release so your soul can be free, and someone said self-doubt and limitation. So then I'm like, okay, cool. What are you doubting? What are you limiting? I said, but it's all in your thinking. But after the session, they felt different because I allowed them to be whoever they are, where they are, to tap into their consciousness. And I think that's what sleep does. Sleep allows us to tap into our consciousness without any outcome. But if I know every day, just say you had an app, right? Every day, if I go to Feby's app and press this, I know that this level of consciousness or this awareness is going to help me not only sleep better, but think better when I awake. And I just feel like there should be a consciousness on sleep. Maybe there is a book, but I feel like sleep is so important, especially for longevity. And for someone in your world, what is something that you wish everybody knew about sleep and longevity that you don't think they're aware of, but it's simple?
Well, yes. I think maybe we should write a book about sleep and consciousness together.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
there's a lot of potential and things that I don't think people realize that how connected they are.
yeah,
It is a way to tap into universal consciousness when you sleep. But as far as longevity is concerned, I think it's one of those longevity is a marathon, it's not a sprint.
got it.
And so whenever you try to say, okay, I understand sometimes we have projects or things that come up and for whatever reason, it happens. But if that's a long term thing, you're making a marathon into a sprint. And if you
Yeah,
want life to be healthy, like we can all try to live now, we have means to live maybe much longer, but are you going to be healthy? Do you want to be active when you're 90 versus not be in great health and be almost vegetative at 90. Those are 2 different things. Our goal, all of us, what you would probably agree is all of us wanna be living healthy to our 90s and our 100s, maybe even longer,
yeah,
active, doing the things we love, being and ambulating well without help and getting up and not needing the assistance of others and enjoying life, still eating and everything. That's what we would wanna do. And if you sleep, it doesn't seem like it why does sleeping right now affect my life at like, my 80s? It doesn't seem like because the way time can fool us sometimes and makes us think
yeah,
that it's not connected, but it does. It's like a compound effect. If you That's why they call compounding the eighth principle or the eighth wonder is because the way it works is every time you go to sleep, it's like your trash can. It's like the trash is being cleaned out.
yeah.
And if you don't go to sleep and you do that regularly, it's like things are just piling up. Trash is coming up and it's not being cleaned. Well, now we know direct causation to Alzheimer's, dementia, even diabetes, blood pressure, all kinds of things, direct causation because there was chronic sleep deprivation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like when I'm in that high space, I feel like there's nothing I can't do. I feel so empowered. It feel like magic, like alchemy. Like I feel like the Holy Spirit is coming through my hands and I can just enlighten people with energy and like, yeah, we got this. It's really like fire for your soul. But I do think we do take that part of ourselves for granted too, because some people might be afraid of that intensity or that elevation of self, but it definitely helps. But we definitely got to get sleep. But how do we get into your energy and how do we work with you? And what is your ideal client?
My ideal client is anyone who is passionate about peak performance and wants to get the best out of life, like wants to get all the juices out of life and not look at it from just like one lens, but look at it from all different types. Like, is it breath work? Is it spirituality? Do we need to do this spiritual practice? Do you need to take a nap here? Are you traveling? Do you have kids? Like, there's a lot of things. It's like a whole like world that we need to decipher. And if you're interested in that, I would love to work with any client. It doesn't really matter as far as who it is. An ideal client who wants to optimize. Like I myself am like that. I want to optimize everything. I want to be at my peak performance in every and make sure it's one of those like 1% rule. If you make a 1% or even a 0.1% in a lot of little things, it adds up. And so if you notice a difference between a person who is a master and someone who is a novice is that 1% change in a lot of different things is compounded. And so if you make that adjustment and you have someone looking at it from different lenses, I think it makes you kind of powerful. It almost gives you like a superpower effect.
Yeah, and it's good because sleep is so, like I said, general and natural for all of us. Once we can tap into the parts of ourselves based on the work you do to fulfill that role, I think we have a better life. Now, when you were talking, I was thinking, like, you know what? I do coach and train a lot of successful, independent CEOs, for one, but also moms, right? What is the best thing for mothers who have a business, who have kids, who has a husband, who make good money? How do they get into that space of getting good rest? What should they do?
Oh man, I hear ya because as a mom of two, and my husband and I are both physicians, so both very demanding careers, it is hard, but I think you have to look at it and kind of understand what your big rocks are. Like what do you want to prioritize? And then I can work with you or can tell you what we should talk about. Maybe it might be adding more things on your plate,
Yeah.
more big rocks on your plate and taking some things away. I don't want you to do it at the detriment of sleep, but I do want you to practice um like exercise. But some of my moms exercise too much and so
Right.
cause havoc on your hormones as well. So it's doing it in a balance, especially for women, because we have such hormonal fluctuable,
Yep.
with very cyclical beings, right? We're not like men where we're the same.
Mhm.
So when women are cyclical beings, it is very important that we do it and working with our cycle and our hormone changes based on what stage of life we are. Are we premenopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, or menopause? That all makes a difference as far as what your mood is, how many things you should put on your plate in the beginning. Like how many items should you have on our plate? Should we make our plate even bigger or should we shrink our plate? And like based on how old your kids are and what your relationship with your husband, how understanding is your husband or your spouse, like, that also makes a difference, right?
Yeah, and last one is just because I feel like people can relate, or maybe they should have this awareness. What is the impact that love have on your body when it comes to rest? So for me, I realize when my partner and I were watching a movie or watching something, I literally fall asleep because my nervous system feels so regulated. I feel safe. I got my love on my side, and it's easy for me to go to sleep. So, from your lens, how much, or maybe you don't know, maybe you do know, how much does love or intimacy or having that energy in our life impact our sleep, healthy sleep?
Women, they sleep so much different when they are in the midst of a very powerful and a protector versus one that they have to worry about, or they are kind of the main thinking part of their union. So when you are in love and, they say, "Oh, you have the love glow," we know there's more oxytocin being released.
Mhm.
And oxytocin is a very powerful sleep hormone. So sleep is not just like, oh, it's a switch. It's actually a dimmer that's very complex and has like histamine. We don't think histamine has anything to do with sleep.
Yeah.
Acetylcholine, norepinephrine, or epinephrine, orexin, or hypocretin. These are all hormones that kind of play a role in sleep itself. And oxytocin also plays a role. That's why a mother who breastfeeds her child right after she breastfeeds, will go to sleep very quickly because the oxytocin is just like it's flooding down her blood. When you're with your loved one, you have oxytocin, you are in just bliss and you can go to sleep very quickly. That's why a lot of people fall asleep after like intimacy because it was a lot of oxytocin and dopamine that was released.
Wow. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I was like, I always go to sleep, but I feel so at rest. Like, watch the movie, you always go to sleep. I'm like, okay, I'm asleep. So, yeah, I just think those factors are important, and I pray that everybody allows love into their life, and not just from like a partner or romantic, but just in life. Like, let people support you, let people love you. Because I was the one who was like, I'm good, I'm good, but was I? And then I allow love in, but I allow support. You actually feel better in your body on a day to day, and you're able to do more in life. So,
Oh, yes.
yeah, so it's so important.
I was the same way. I was more like independent. I couldn't do
Yeah.
anything on my own. And then when you find someone who can carry the burden with you, like let it's not any testimony to your capability of like, okay, I have to. No one's saying you signed some sort of pledge saying you have
Right, right, right.
to.
Yeah.
Let people take it, and that feels good for them too.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street.
It that releases oxytocin for them too. So you're doing them a favor and you're doing yourself a favor as well.
Yeah. Wow. See, people, you gotta give and receive, receive and give. So it is. All right. Well, last question, and then can you give us your website where we can find you? But the last question is, what is spiritual fitness to you?
Spiritual fitness is something that, first of all, I love that term. I think I told you this before, but I love that term because we are spiritual, whether you want to
Yeah.
acknowledge or not. We are spiritual, uh, and there is spirit in all of us. There is, and I love the way Native Americans think about it. Is there's spirit in every object as well. So there is energetics in everything and everyone, right? And then fitness, the part that I love about it is like it's something you have to practice intentional, and you have to do it daily. So that's why I love the marrying of the two words. So it's one of those where you see you're in spirit, you're in theos, you're in with God in union, and you practice it every day.
Wow. Look at that. Great definition. Add that to the archives. Wow. So where do we find you? How do we website, social media?
So not very active on social media. I probably should be.
Yeah.
But as far as website, it's FebyMariaMD.com. But that's also a very primitive website that I'm still working on. But if you want to contact me, you can just touch base with my team and I, and we'll get back to you.
You at Stanford, right?
Yeah.
Got it. So, well, guys, this was an amazing interview. Thank you, Feby, for your time and your ideology and your truth. People, get your rest, get to sleep, allow yourself to surrender. If you have to make a big decision, go to sleep on it. Sleep on it. And to let love help with sleep too. But this is another spiritual fitness episode. Download this episode, share, subscribe, like. Make sure you follow her on all accounts. I have her information in the show notes. But yeah, the number one sleep doctor in the world, longevity specialist, Feby Maria. So it is. We guys, until next time, I'll see you soon.